Hi, in this video we're going to set up an Apache web server to run a Web.py website, and I'm also going to build a very simple Web.py website. So I want to use virtual hosting, so I want the domain name to be webpy.example.com. So if you see now when I go there in my browser, it tells me that it can't find that domain name. So my computer always checks the file etc hosts first whenever I type the domain name into the browser, and if it can't find it there, then it'll use some DNS server on the internet. So what I want to tell my computer is that if I ever type webpy.example.com, it should just go to 127.0.0.1, which is my local host. So I save that file and quit, and let's see what happens now. So it says, hi from the default website. This is my default web server. This is my default directory. You might be seeing the default web page that's installed with your Apache web server right now. I see this because my computer opens up my virtual hosting files. Let's do that. So mine are in etc Apache 2 extra httpd-vhost.conf, and it will look through this file. Everywhere it says server name, it'll try to match the domain name that I typed in. If it can't match any of them, it'll just use the first one, whatever the first one is. And the first one happens to be a page that on my computer it says hi from the default website because I made it say that. So what I want to do is make a new virtual host directive that will listen on port 80. The document root will tell it where to go to find the files when I type in that domain name. So I'm going to put them in users, tbsmith, sites. Let's call it webpy.example.com. Now I gotta be sure to make that directory before I start up my web server, or my web server is not going to start up. The directory index directive is going to tell the Apache web server which files to look for inside of the directory if I have not specified any files. So this is going to be a Python website, so I'm going to want it to open index.py. My server name is webpy.example.com. I want to put my error logs in the file var log apache 2 error log. If you have a real website, you'd want to put it in its own file, separate from all your other websites. Custom log is where all your access log entries go. Just every time somebody comes to your website, loads an image or a page, sends a request to a script, anything like that is logged here. So I'm just going to put that in access log. But on a real web server, you'd want to give that its own file. Give each website its own log files. And I close off the virtual host. So another thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to be rewriting URLs. And the way I do that is with the htaccess file. But I need to tell my web server that it's okay to rewrite URLs. So I'm going to tell it that everywhere in this directory it should add the option called follow symlinks. And and that'll allow it to rewrite URLs. Now the plus sign is that if all options are already set, the plus sign is going to add this to the set of options. If I take away the plus sign, then it's going to rewrite all the old options, delete them, and just use follow symlinks. So I don't want to delete all my old options if any are set, so I'm going to put a plus sign there so it just adds to them. So now, if I try to restart the web server, it's going to make sure that this directory exists, the document root, and the error log file, and the custom log file. All those have to exist before the Apache server is going to start up. So I'm going to test it. I'm going to test the Apache configuration. So I'll type Apache CTL config test, and it says, oh, warning, document root does not exist. So let's make that. Make dir. I'll just copy and paste. Okay, let's try that again. Custom log takes 2 or 3 arguments. That's right, I should have put the word common here at the end. Now config test says syntax okay, so now I know it's okay to restart my web server. So I'm going to restart my web server. I need to be a super user to do that, so I'm going to type sudo Apache CTL restart. And now let's see what happens. Okay, well it's going to that directory, but nothing is in the directory. Okay, so I want to go to that directory too, so I'll put that in sites, Web.py.example.com. Nothing in there. So let's put something in there. First thing I want to do is get Web.py, so let's find it. Oops. I'll just Google it. I want the one from GitHub, so I have the latest, and I'm just gonna grab this from GitHub and clone it in this directory. So let's see, git clone. It's cloning it to Web.py. So there's Web.py. What I want to do is be able to import the folder web. If you look inside of Web.py, you see there's a folder called web, and I want to be able to import that. So I'm going to make a symbolic link. So link-s. So if I were to write A, B, I always think to myself, B points to A, B points to A. So B is going to be the link, A is going to be the real file. So what I want to link to is web.py/web, and I want the link to be called web. So now I have web and web.py. If I do ls-l, it'll show me that web is actually just a symbolic link to web.py/web. So now I should be able to, if I go into a Python prompt, I should be able to type import web, and I'll get no complaints. That means it's able to find that that package. So I should be able. So I am able to import web now. So let us make our htaccess file. Before I set up my htaccess file, there are a couple of options I need to set in my main Apache configuration file. I need to be super user to edit it, so I'm going to type sudo, and my favorite text editor is VI. Use your own favorite text editor, and my configuration files are in etc apache2 httpd.conf. So what I'm looking for is a line called WSGI. If you don't have it, put it in there, get it installed. If it's commented, uncomment it. Also, I need the module called rewrite module, and the SO file is called mod rewrite. I need that. So if it's not there, put it in there, get it installed, uncomment it, save it, and quit. you're going to need to restart the Apache web server whenever you make a change to its configuration file. So I'm going to do, well, let's do Apache ctl config test, just to be safe. So syntax okay, so I'm going to do sudo apache ctl restart. Alright, so now let's make our htaccess file. So I'm going to vi.htaccess. So I need to set a couple of things. I'm going to use a files directive, and on the file called index.py, I want to set a couple of options. I want to tell it that it's a WSGI script, so it's not a CGI script. So just on this index.py file, or any file called index.py, I'm going to set a handler for a WSGI script. I'm also going to set a couple of options. One option is exec CGI, and the other option is follow symlinks. And I close off the files directive. So some other things I need to do are turn on the rewrite engine. So I'm typing rewrite engine on. Rewrite base. All my conditions and rules that I'm about to write are going to start at the rewrite base. And since I'm using virtual hosting and I have my own domain name, my base is just going to be a slash. So I need a few conditions. These are conditions where if these conditions are matched, then the following rewrite rule is not going to be used. So one of those conditions is if the user is requesting a fave icon, then I do not want to invoke my script. I just want to serve out the fave icon. Every time somebody comes to your website, they're going to request the fave icon. That's the little tiny icon that goes up in the tab in the browser. That's GitHub's fave icon right there. So request URI. So this line says if the request URI, this exclamation point means not, the caret means it's matching the beginning of the string, and everything is starting after the slash at the end of the domain name. But if it does not match at the beginning of the string, the word faveicon.ico, and the $sign matches the end of the string. So it's got to not match that in order to proceed. The next condition, so if it does match that, it'll just fail, and it'll just serve the URL as is, and it won't follow the rewrite rule at the end. So another condition I want is on the request URI. So I only want it to proceed if it does not match at the beginning of a string. These parentheses are going to save this for me. So I'm looking for a slash, a dot matches anything one time, a star matches that preceding thing 0 or more times. The closing parenthesis is going to save that for me. The plus sign is going to match 1 or more times. So this is matching a slash and any characters 1 or more times. So slashes and characters and slashes and characters, and then finally index.py. And I'm putting nothing on the end of that because I don't want to match the end of the string there. There could be other things after that. Another rewrite condition is also on the request URI. I want to make sure that the request URI does not match. So if I wanted it to match, I would just not put the exclamation point. So I want it to not match at the beginning of the string. Also want to save this. Yeah, the parentheses do save it, but they also group things together. So in this case, the parentheses are grouping these together for the plus sign. And that's the purpose of these parentheses also. So slash dot matches anything, star matches that preceding thing 0 or more times. And these regular expressions are greedy by default, so they're going to match as many things as possible. And the parenthesis is going to close off that grouping, and the plus sign is going to match one or more of them. And then a literal dot, if I just put a dot, it'll match anything. I want to actually match a dot, so I have to escape it with a backslash. So backslash CSS. And now I want to match backslash dot. Now I want to match either CSS or, this is the pipe, or a PNG file, just in case I have pings or some style sheets that I want to display. And the end of the file. So back to the beginning, this is going to match a slash and then any character one or more times, and then a literal dot, and then a CSS or a ping. And I have an exclamation point here, so in order to proceed to the next line, it's got to not match that. So if it does match that, it's going to ignore this rewrite rule that I'm about to write. So if it passes all those conditions, which means it does not match any of those three things, then I want to use the rewrite rule, where at the beginning of the string, and remember this is everything after the slash, which comes after the domain name. For example, on this GitHub website, when I type .star, it would match Web.py / Web.py, everything after the slash after the domain name, because that's my rewrite basis, the slash. So from the beginning of the string, I want to match anything all the way to the end of the string, which is a $sign. And that first grouping is, I can refer to it with the $1. So I'm going to rewrite that URL to use index.py /$1. And write and quit. You do not have to restart the Apache web server after you change the .htaccess file. So now we need a website. So let's get our website to do something. So I'm in my root directory and I'm opening index.py. First thing I want to do is, since this is a Python script, I want to give it the location of the Python interpreter, and that's user bin Python. And I want to import the web package. So the first thing it needs to do is rewrite URLs. So I'm going to give it a array. First thing in the array is a URL to match. So if it sees /contact, this is after the htaccess file is done rewriting it. If it sees /contact, then I want to send it to the class called contact, which I will write in a second. Otherwise, so I just want to match slash and then just anything, so .star. I want to send it to the class called index. Okay, and these couple of lines are necessary. App is equal to web.application. And so I'm invoking the application method from the web package, and I'm sending it URLs to rewrite. I'm sending it a function called globals, which I don't specify. It'll have a default, and auto reload, which is false. And I need to set application. Application is equal to app.wsgi func. And I'm not going to do anything with it, but the Web.py framework needs that to be set. Also for debugging purposes, I'm going to type web.config.debug equals true. And whenever I get all the bugs fixed, I can set that to false. So let's write a class called index. So in Web.py, it sends everything to the specified class, and each class should have a get and a post method. So I'm going to define a method called get. In Python, methods always need self to be the first parameter, and you can make up the rest. I'm going to make up a parameter called name with the default value of none. I'm going to use a templating system, so I should specify my template path. So my website is in /users tbsmith sites webpy.example.com, and I haven't made it yet, but I'm going to put the templates in a folder called templates, and I'll put a slash at the end. So now I'm going to invoke a variable called form, and I write web.template.friender, which is a way to open a template and fill it with variables and return it. So web.template.friender, and then I need to give it the path to the template. So my path is called template path, and I'm going to add form.html, and I'll create that in just a second. So that's done, and I'm just going to return that form. I'm going to pass it the parameter my form, just so I can show passing data to a template. Also need a method called post. Everything's got to have self, and I'm going to use, well, let's just leave it at that. I want it to do something, so I'm going to return something. Let's just say hi from post. Let's call it index post. Okay, there's going to be another class called contact. And it needs a get and a post method, so I'm going to define a get method called self. I'm going to pass it name again. Let's not do that. And I'm just going to return a string. So hi from contact get. And another method called post. So define post self. And this time, this post method is going to be called when I have a form whose action is my domain name / contact. It'll automatically get routed to this post method. So the way to get the getted and posted variables from the form is with a method called web.input. So I'm going to write query equals web.input. Now I want to show something on the screen, so I'm going to make a string, and the string is going to say hi from, let's say, contact post, and you wrote, and then I'm going to add to the string query dot, and this thing I'm going to type next is the name of the input field from the form. So I haven't written that form yet, but I'm going to call it key, as in key value pair. So I'm going to return that string, so that should show up on the browser. And that's all I need for index.py. Let's see, it says 2 blank lines are expected on line 17. Python is really picky about its spacing. So before you start your classes, it likes to see 2 blank lines. And between classes, it likes to see 2 blank lines. Okay, so I'm going to quit that. I'm also going to make a that directory I was talking about earlier called templates, and let's go in there. And I need a template called form.html. So all templates need to start with $def with name, and these are the variable names that are passed into the template. And I'm just going to write some basic HTML, so letting the browser know that this is going to be HTML5. So yeah, angle bang dot type HTML, and let's just make a form real quick. So HTML body, to refer to the variable that was passed in, use $, kind of like PHP variables. So I'm going to put the name there, and then form action equals /contact. The method is going to be post. My ink type, even though I don't need it in this example, is good practice, good habit to always use multi-part form data. And close that form. Let's make some inputs. So let's just say input name equals key. And I need a submit button, so input type equals submit. Close off my form. Close off my body. Close off my HTML. And that's my template. So let's quit. And let's run that on the website. Now before I do that, I want to tail the error logs in case anything bad happens. So I'm gonna, down here, I'm gonna say tail -f for follow. Etsy no var log Apache 2 error log. Okay, let's go back to the browser and run that and see what happens. Well, it says my form. That's the name I passed in. Let's see if I type something in here and hit submit. Do I get an error? So these errors say that post takes exactly 1 argument, but 2 were given. Well, let's check that out. I googled the error, post takes exactly 1 argument, 2 given. People said it's probably your URL mapping, so I could get a clue by testing the other features of my script. You know, if I tried to go to contact without, by just typing it in the browser, then it would be a GET request, and my contact class, the GET method, should just return hi from contact GET. So let's see what happens. It loads the form, so it's going to the index GET. So my URL mapping is obviously not working. Here's my index GET. It loads that template. So it's going to index. Now if I look up here in my URL mapping, I put an extra slash at the end of contact, and that is not my form action, so it was not matching. It was moving on to the next line where it just matches anything, and it was sending all that to the index class, and there was too much stuff for the index post function because it only takes self. So I'm going to go back up here, take out this slash, and save it, and let's try again from the beginning. So there's my form. If I type something and hit submit, it says hi from contact post, you wrote Q. That's true, I did write Q. And if I go to the URL, the address bar in the browser, I just say enter, it'll be a GET request, and it says hi from contact GET. Okay, so it's getting and posting properly now. In this video, we set up a basic Web.py website. We set up the Apache web server to serve it. We use the .htaccess file to set a few options, and the Web.py website basically just uses forms for getting and putting information.